Good morning. Happy Monday to all of you. Happy Monday mindset. It's so great to be here. It's been a hot minute since we've been in Mindset Monday together. I've been doing a lot of traveling, working with teams, going to different places in the country, working with some awesome people. So I'm happy to be here with you this morning. As you come in, say hello. And just going to make sure that we get us live in all the right places as y'all are coming in and settling in. You may want to have where you have something to write with. Be ready to go in that sense. So that you can jot down some notes. Good morning. Good morning. As you come in, say good morning. So today we are going to tap into the mindset practice, really looking at how we ignite motivation, because you've seen all these statistics in the last couple of weeks. I think it's like by the third week of January, most people have given up on whatever they think that their goals are, resolutions for the new year, that kind of thing. So I really want to talk about how do we get into the science behind wiring our state for success, right? To move through. Good morning, everyone. As you come in, say good morning. As success to move through, and that you are not just like pushing really hard, but really intrinsically moving through to what you want to accomplish. So we're going to tap in and look at the science behind motivation and why that's important, and looking how to enhance your performance. We've been talking about flow state. It's the state that you can get in where your mind and your physical, mental, emotional are all aligned, and that you're really in a state for peak performance. Everything just flows in this state. So, what is motivation? It's your willingness to do something. And we have a lot of willingness to do things at the beginning of the year. I just came back from an amazing leading in a leadership workshop for our leadership group, for some of the members of our leadership group in New Orleans last weekend. There's a lot of motivation when you're in a space like that for what the new year brings. But what I want to talk to you about is how do we continue that, and what are the daily practices that you can do to bring that motivation to keeps you moving forward. So motivation is this set of psychological forces that really compel you to take action. How can you learn to build those triggers for yourself every day? And when you can do that, when you have intrinsic motivation, then you are more likely to be tapped. We know that that's one of the key components of tapping into flow. And that looks a lot at, and what we need to know is what we're passionate about. So having passion, really feeling passionate about working in something, spikes norepinephrine and dopamine, both which are powerful neurochemicals for driving focus into the present moment. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about flow. It's this state that you're so focused that creativity is unlocked on a different level. Studies are showing that productivity increases up to 500% for executives that know how to tap into this. And when you can be passionate and tap into what your passion is, you're literally triggering the neurochemicals that help you to be in that state. Because when we have passion, there's a passion flow cycle. There's passion that causes focused attention, and then focused attention causes flow. And then that continues. Flows causes passion, because when we're in that flow state, it feels amazing, right? And if it feels amazing, then it's something that is intrinsically motivating to do. And that causes a whole neurochemistry of flow that's a blend of, like, when I said norepinephrine and dopamine and serotonin and some other endorphins to happen that allow you to get into that state. So the very first thing we want to think about is looking at what are our intrinsic motivators. So that is like something that you find interesting and enjoyable to do. When you play to your passions, you can maintain focus longer, and those levels of what's happened neurochemically increase in your brain, and that gives that positive feedback loop that I was talking about. So there can be extrinsic motivators. They're not as powerful as intrinsic. So extrinsic would be like the benefits of doing something. So, maybe for our team members, it would be bonuses, it would be promotions, but for us, it might be winning right? So we want to find what are our intrinsic motivators. So what is something you really enjoy in your work, y'all? My first question to you this morning. Normally I'm asking all kinds of questions. So what is something that you could think about that you have planned for the week that you could be like, that part of it I really love? I want you to find how you can build a little bit of that into every day, because if you can do that, then you're triggering the neurochemistry that will help you to tap into flow. So doing a little bit of what you love right at the beginning of a focused time of work helps to trigger that. So let's see that in the comments. Oh, you guys have been commenting all over the place. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I can't see your names, but I would love to see what's something that you could really tap into in thinking about that. I really love doing this. How can I build that a little bit of that time into my day every day? So I did some of it this morning. The very first thing I did when I got up was did a little bit of studying because I love to learn. It sounds really crazy, but I do. And so I was like studying even more things that I have to do about uh, the neuroscience behind flow. And that gets me really excited. Like I feel so like amped, right? To do the next thing. What is something, let me see it in the comments, y'all. What is something that you could say? It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be that you really love thinking about the structure of story on a case, or you love brainstorming strategy, or maybe you love accounting. I don't know. Something that you love. Yeah, so someone says, I love the creative part of my job, that you could build a little bit that in before you try to tap into this focused work. And this, I'm giving you the keys, y'all, to be in peak performance. So take the time to answer this for yourself. Because it will make a difference for you. Okay. So we're going to move into the thing that's really important for helping you to tap into flow on a daily basis is leveraging your strengths. So I want you to identify what's a strength that you have, and how could you focus on increasing it this week? So I have a strength in connection. I have a strength in presence with people. So I can build that into every client session. That can increase flow in that session. So what's a strength? So what's one strength that you could focus on this week? If you would just find a way to tap into it each day, you're going to be changing your state to be able to be in a more, that peak performance state that we're talking about. The next real key is to pursue mastery in something. What do you want to dedicate yourself to achieving? And that's going to tie into our next one, which is setting clear goals. But for this source of intrinsic motivation that keeps you on a longer path of things that drives flow so that you're not quitting by the third week in January, is really deciding on something you want to master. So maybe you want to master this year being a leader. Maybe you want to master this year the structure of story in your cases. Maybe you want to master creating a certain space for brainstorming process. Maybe you want to master processes within your work. Maybe you want to master time. Something that you want to master is really important to think about. And I'd like you to dial it down. Let's make it practical. What's a task or skill that you want to master this week? And that just means spending a little bit more time on it. Something where you're dedicated, focused into it, could be passionate about it. What's one skill or task that you want to master this week? Let's see what you're saying. You love when your staff does what they ask them to do. Okay, so that is amazing, but I want to challenge you. Let's make it about you. Well, let's make it about you. Improve at public speaking. Master seems too ambitious for the moment. Well, so mastery is a process, right? So what could you do this week that helps you to improve, which is mastering public speaking? What would that be? One thing, make that a part of a goal that you could have, which brings us into our next thing that's really important if you want to tap into flow, and that is setting very clear goals. So we want to, and it's setting goals that are actually aligned with what your purpose is. And if you don't know what your purpose is, you should put #purpose, because then I will come back and talk with you. It's key to know what you're passionate about, and your passion is what's going to define what your purpose is. And we want to be living in a space that is intentional, but that also helps us to live in a place where we're in the flow of our lives when we're really aligned with our values and our passion and our purpose. So goals that are aligned with your purpose, but break that down this week. What are some clear goals that you have? Let's make it for today. Because if I make it for the whole week, then that might be too big of a broad topic for you. What are some clear, specific goals that you have for today? Um, Clear, specific goals for today that I have set. One, I have some studying to do that I'm actually going to get through. Two, I have very specific goals that I want to accomplish with clients today and their sessions. So you see what I'm saying? Very specific, clear goals in reference to something you want to do today. Patience and time manage. I want to master being a leader in my role and be consistent with working towards your goals. Yes, very good. Yeah. And so, what's one thing that you could do today that would help with that? Patience and time management is a good one that would help with that. All right. I'm trying to make this practical for y'all. You need to dial it down into something you can ever do to complete a few high priority tasks. Yes. And when you want to complete those, you should use these triggers that we're talking about. So, what do I mean by that? Each of these things is a trigger. If you are doing something you are passionate about, is a trigger for performance. If you're doing something that leverages a strength, that's a trigger for high performance. It's a trigger for a flow state. If you are really focused into accomplishing a goal and you get very specific that in the next hour, I want to do this, very specific in the next hour, that is a trigger for a flow state because you have a focused that you can tap into, that you can turn on the flow triggers in your brain. One of the things I wanted to keep in here that might not seem to apply to some of you. You may own your own bit. You're a leader and you are in charge of your schedule and your autonomy and what you want to do. But as a leader, it's important to think about this, and that is embracing opportunity for autonomy in your daily life. So that's the freedom to pursue what you're passionate about. Sometimes being an entrepreneur and a leader of our own business, we put ourselves last and having the autonomy to pursue what we're passionate about. So think about that question, but also how can you build some autonomy into your team members, allowing them to have autonomy to accomplish goals? How could that look? Maybe they have to follow a certain process, but where can they build autonomy in and choices? That helps to embrace higher performance in your team members. It also gives them more intrinsic motivation in what they're doing because they feel like they have more control. And then the next trigger that's really helps you with building flow is going to sound weird. It would be maintaining relationships and building connections. So if you can focus and have a focus on connecting with others, it helps you to stay grounded and balanced and more able to be into flow. And that's important. So I always have been asking you guys, how are you building connections in your life? It's not about the number of connections, it's about the meaning of the connections. So what is one connection that you will grow this week? One connection that you will grow this week. I've actually already created some opportunities to meet some new people this week, so I'm excited about that. What's one way that you're going to grow a connection? Maybe it'll be that you call up someone that you haven't talked to in a while. Or it's a relationship that you've been meaning to reach out and to enhance. What's one way you'll do that this week? Take time to time block for that. When is that going to happen? Okay. Whenever you want to be into flow state and peak performance, it's all about avoiding distractions. And goodness gracious, I struggle enforcing this or trying to really get you guys to see the power in this. There's such resistance from people because we live in such a distracted state. There's so much that takes our attention, right? But when you allow distractions to come in, like text messages or messages on Teams or Slack or emails, or even phone calls, when you want to have flow and really have and tap into productivity, you have to block all of that. And look, it's just a part of your human state. The very first step in a flow cycle is what we call flow struggle, which means there's a part of us that resists it. So there's a part of us that's really wants to look at that text message that just came in. There's also a lot about how technology is built that makes us, gives us the distraction, gives us a little bit of a dopamine hit. So you need to resist it. I ask for that you time block for something you want to clearly accomplish and just set a time of an hour or 2 hours. Nothing is going to happen in that time that you can't manage. And then do not have any distractions turned on your computer or your phone. Watch how much you get done and how easier it is to get into flow when you take out the distractions. So you really have to work on being intentional and making your environment conducive to flow by eliminating environmental and self distractions so that you can be fully immersed in attention and focus. So, how are you going to do that today? Look at your calendar right now. Where are you going to build in the block for flow with no distractions? It is so hard when people first start this because we're so wired for distractions. But once you do it and you see how powerful it is, then that builds in that intrinsic motivation that we were talking about because it becomes joyful. It's something that you're like, wow, I knocked this out. I hit into a flow state yesterday afternoon. And I had a lot to create, several things to write. And once I tapped into the state, I knocked out things that were on my to-do list for the next 2 weeks. And it was amazing. And once I was finished, then I was so happy. It was like, then I was wired, right? Like, so it was really, really great. So it is an intrinsic motivator when you get into that state. So where can you build in with no distractions? So all of this comes down to managing your state, regulation. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. It starts with awareness of knowing where you are and how you feel physically, mentally, emotionally, and how you can empower all of those states. And I would even bring in spiritually and what that means to you. All of that is a connection into helping you to perform better, but to help feel like you are living a fulfilled life and that you're not just waking up and reacting to everything in your world, but that you become a creator. So practicing self-regulations are knowing the activities that help you to come into a flow state. So what are the physical practices that do that? It might be exercise, certain breathing techniques, meditation practices, journaling. Gratitude is a great one. That's a mental one that you can use. And then recognizing and having awareness of the way that you think and what beliefs come out. I mean, there's so many ways to manage your state. That's what we are teaching, and that's what we do in our peak performance programs. It's so awesome to see people step in and really change things. So how are you going to manage your state today? How are you going to keep yourself in the state that you want to be in? Not one of anxiety that's draining or frustration. Frustration, resentment is one of the most draining states that you can be in. It's really looking for and asking yourself to you use yourself to reset yourself physically, and then asking yourself, what are the opportunities here when you find frustration? What can I make this an opportunity so that it becomes more empowering and not draining? All right, let's see if I see any comments that you guys, anybody brave, you insist on having autonomy. Well, that's good. And then I would think about if you have a team, because I can't see who's that doesn't give me names here. How do you build autonomy to them? Because it's important for performance. So respond to potential current referral sources who've emailed me over the last couple of weeks. Beautiful. So that's building connections. Great. Wow. 10-day road trip visiting TLC friends, Navy destroyer, a great sense of nostalgia for meaningful relationship. All right. Doesn't it recharge you to have and build those kind of connections? And that's one of the things that we're talking about with managing state and learning to trigger into that. All right, guys, be intentional. Have an awesome Monday. Have an amazing week. If you want to know more about our peak performance programs, put hashtag peak, PEAK in the comments. And I promise to reach out to you personally. All right, talk soon.